Irashaimase. Hello and welcome to Fataris' Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fataris. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and on the menu this week we have Legion, classic arcade action. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. From developer Nichibutsu, Legion released to arcades in 1987. Now in May of 2024, it's available for the PlayStation 4 and the Nintendo Switch as an arcade archive release. This is yet another obscure arcade shoot 'em up that I wouldn't be familiar with if it weren't for the arcade archives. And that would be disappointing, as really some of the unique elements this game has were really neat to see, and it kind of feels almost revolutionary for the time, as there's this somewhat random feeling stage progression, at least it seems that way to me, that's really interesting and hard to kind of figure out. Then there's also this time bomb mechanic, which is the first instance I can think of where you have a time rewind in a game as part of the mechanics itself. But as far as some of the issues that the game has, it does have some terrible sound design, and overall some things are also confusing mechanically wise. This game does support 2 players simultaneous, so that's how we'll be showing the game off today. Starting off the game, we have a brief launch sequence, and then we're right into the thick of things. Mechanically wise, this is a vertical scrolling shoot 'em up, so control, it handles as you would expect any title along those lines to do so. We also have a primary main shot, but the other attack or skill that we can use is where this game starts to get really interesting. So you have the ability to rewind time, just as I did there. And what that does is it sends the enemies back, if they were coming onto the screen, it sends them back the direction they came, unless you've already destroyed them, and it also reverses the course of the shots. But there's also another element to that as well. If you have 3 time bombs saved up, which you can see at the bottom of the screen, then it's actually possible to save yourself from a death, and we saw the second player do that just a moment ago. Having a feature like that in a game at this point in game development is really, really awesome to see. It just, like I said, it feels kind of revolutionary, and I had no idea that there was a game out there like this. So there are a couple of different power-ups that we also have access to. So throughout the course of the gameplay, you're encountering these crystals, mostly the ones that are blue and then the orange-red ones. So the blue ones will give you additional time bombs. The orange one will give you, will activate this fusion attack, where if you're one player, one side will be anchored to where you picked up the power-up, and then you'd move around firing lasers between that. But if you're playing 2-player, you have the neat ability to control where both sides of that fusion attack tether is. So we're approaching the end of the first stage, and you see we have this shortcut here. So this brings us to that stage progression that I was talking about. At the end of the stage, you have the choice of 2 different areas, and here it's saying Area 7 or Area 9. So from our various playtesting, I honestly can't tell you if that whole shortcut direction is actually giving us a shortcut or not. Ultimately, we're trying to get to Area 12, where the boss of the game is, and incidentally, that is also the only boss character that we'll encounter, is the boss in Area 12. But to do so, you might take a really random path where you're going Area 7, Area 2, Area 10, Area 11, Area 12. And so that's one of the things that's really neat, is I'm not even sure that we've seen all of the game itself, just because of how non-linear the progression feels for this title. So there's also an element of power-up where we're picking up these ground support personnel, and there are 3 types of personnel that we're rescuing. There's the soldier, the red guy here. There's also an engineer that's blue, and kind of a purple laser character. So maybe I have to see those backwards, but ultimately what those characters do is they help provide benefits for your ship if short term. So the soldiers will take up positions in the 4 corners, providing additional firepower. The laser will change your shot into a more powerful laser, which can damage some enemies you wouldn't otherwise be able to hit. And lastly, the engineer speeds up your ship, though it is possible to get too many engineers and actually get way too fast, so that is something to be cautious about. There is also this rescue ship, which you might have seen show up a couple times, where, at least according to the manual of the Arcade Archive release, you can drop those individuals off at, but from my experience, nothing happens when you do so. So the shortcuts this time are pointing us left. So let's see what stage that would take us to. Area 5 versus Area 8. We're already in Area 8, so I guess we'll go Area 5. So here's why I'm saying that's confusing. So with those elements, the unique time bomb and the stage progression, that's basically what we have for the shoot 'em up Legion. Some really interesting features, and some, like the whole rescue, that just kind of feel not sure if it's incorrectly implemented or what's going on there, but I just can't figure that one out. And that whole shortcut part really is kind of an intriguing mind bender of a puzzle to figure out. So as far as the minus flavors are concerned, I haven't touched much on it since starting the video, but the sound design is just atrocious, especially when you're starting the game itself. It really sounds bad. You kind of get used to it, but that's not necessarily something that I feel you want to get all that used to. And then there's just those confusing elements where is the shortcuts really giving us direction to the shortcuts? What even is that rescue ship doing? All those features just make me kind of wonder, were things just a little bit half-baked when this game released, or is there more going on than I realized? But as far as the plus flavors are concerned, that whole time bomb mechanic really is neat. And if you get good with the timing, being able to save yourself from a death is a really awesome thing for a game of this era. And that whole stage progression not being, or basically being a non-linear way to progress through a shoot 'em up that was in the arcades is also, once again, really novel. And lastly, I do really like the art design in this game. So the enemies we've been fighting are called the Dark Empire, and they have this kind of sci-fi anime mecha style, kind of reminiscent, at least to me, of something like Mazinger Z. So if you like that kind of presentation, then the whole interesting mechanics that this game has, I definitely feel this one is worth checking out as an Arcade Archive release. And with that, we find ourselves at the end of this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday. As always, I want to thank you so much for joining us this week. We hope you have a wonderful week yourself, and we look forward to seeing you again next time.